Well guys, this is Randall Root, and I'm trying to create a little video here on how to install SQL Server from the Microsoft StreamSpark site. And hopefully this video will help folks that have been having some issues getting it up and going. Anyway, the first step is, of course, to download it from the StreamSpark website. You have to have a login and permissions to do so. Once you're there, you will be able to go and download products. Now, depending on what school you're in, like the University of Washington or Bellevue College or whatever school you go to, they have different policies about how you access or how you get your name and login. Basically, what it comes down to is they will either register for you, or you'll have to go and create yourself an account. I'll let the various schools tell you how to access the software, but once you get in here, you'll be able to locate SQL Server and click on the link. Now at that point, you can go ahead and download the Developer Edition. The Developer Edition has every feature you can get, and it also installs on as many operating systems as possible. So that is really the one you want to get. At that point in time, you may have to go through and get verified, in other words, log in. And then you can click on the download button afterwards. There will be no key file that you have to copy or anything, so you're pretty much on the honor system. It's a very sweet deal. Also, the way this is set up, at least as of the time of making the video, you can keep this as long as you want, just not made for commercial use. Now, when it begins, you'll eventually end up with an ISO file. And this is basically a zip file that is made to represent what you would get on a DVD. It's pretty good size. It's a little over 4 gigabytes. At that point, if you're using Windows 7, you can actually just go ahead and burn it to a DVD. Now that's one option, and a lot of people have success with it. I've had a mixed success rate on it. Another way is to go ahead and unzip the file. Now, a free piece of software that I and many other people use is 7-Zip. It's an open source extraction and compression software that's it's easy to get, easy to install, and works very well. And so what I've done is I've just right-clicked on the ISO file and used the 7-Zip menu option that comes when you install 7-Zip, and extracted the contents of that ISO file into a folder. You can see the folder right here. So if you were to burn this onto a DVD, this is what you'd end up getting. Now at that point in time, it's on my hard drive, and I can just go ahead and start the setup. I'll right click and run as administrator. You should always do that. I have, for better or for worse, turned off the user access security at the UAC. So, or whatever, control, user access control. So I don't have that little pop-up that says, you know, you're trying to install something, would you like to continue? But when that comes up on your machine, just go ahead and say OK. Otherwise, you're not going to get installed. Now, as soon as I run the setup, the SQL Server Installation Center opens, and there's lots of things to look at here, but the one that we're going to shoot for is installation. And I want to install SQL Server as a standalone installation on my machine. Now, this particular machine I'm doing the video from has Visual Studio 2010 installed, and when I installed Visual Studio 2010, it also installed SQL Express. But other than that, SQL Server 2012 has never been installed, so this is a nice clean installation. So I'll click on that link. It'll launch a little process that goes through and checks to see what my system looks like, and if it's going to make it. And it says something about the long path name to files on SQL Server installation media. This happens, and what it means is that I need to actually move those SQL Server files to a different folder or change the name. So I'll just go ahead and say, actually, leave that open. Then I'm going to have to cancel it. It's probably locked, so I'll just go ahead and quit. And quit again. Okay. So going back over to my hard drive, I can see that I have a folder called software. And what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and change this name a little bit. And now it's going to be C drive, software, SQL 2012 Developer Edition. And it looks to me like this name could easily be shortened, so I'll go ahead and English SQL Server 2012 Developer Edition. I'm not sure I need all the extra goodness right there. And certainly that's lowered some of the characters. That's probably sufficient. Let's find out. Now remember, if you had put this on your desktop or some other place, that's a very common occurrence for the path to be way too long. So the easy way to resolve this is to make the path shorter. That's why I've got a folder right on C drive and not on my desktop, which would be several layers down. Okay, we're going to try this again. Let's see what happens. It's thinking about it. Here goes the report, and okay, well, it says it passed, but I don't see any details here. Let's hit the show details. Oh, much better. It's actually going to check a few times for different things, but anyway, we got past the first part, so let's say okay. The first installation of SQL Server usually takes about 20 minutes. The video I expect will be 15 to 20 minutes long. If you install a subsequent time directly afterwards, for example, if you want a prod installation or dev installation or something like that, the installation goes much faster. Okay, here we are on the product key page. You can see, since I downloaded from DreamSpark, they've already given me a product key, and I can just say next. Obviously, I need to speed read this. Oh man, that was very interesting. And accept the terms. Now it's going to go through and get everything set up. The installation at this point will vary depending on what you have on your machine or where you got where you downloaded SQL from. Unfortunately, there's really not much to do here. You just kind of have to sit and wait. While waiting, I guess I could talk about the fact that I already have SQL Express installed alongside of excuse me, I already have SQL Express installed. It came with Visual Studio 2010, and I have just installed Visual Studio 10 prior to this video. So what's going to happen is that we're going to have SQL Server Express and a full SQL Server installation, the Dev Edition, installed on this machine at the same time, which is perfectly fine. In fact, I'd even recommend it. Okay, so we finally got past that screen, and I'm looking now at an additional review of various support issues. So it's checking things again. My Windows Firewall warning right here is safe to ignore. What it's telling me is that the firewall's up, and so if somebody would like to connect to the SQL Server installation I'm installing, they will be blocked by the firewall. Well, to tell you the truth, since this is not a production system, I'm not expecting to connect to it, at least anytime soon, from a laptop or something else in my personal network. That's fine. It can be blocked all at once. I'll certainly be able to connect to it from my local machine and the keyboard and mouse that I'm going to be using directly on this computer. So it's a warning. You can ignore it and just hit next. Okay, well, I guess you got to click next a little bit better than that. Now here, I'm going to go ahead and install SQL Server feature installation. It's some of the really cool stuff, but right now we're just going for the core SQL Server installation, so I'll just click next. The instance features, I want the database engine. For many classes that you take, you will not need the SQL replication, full text, quality service, data quality service. But to tell you the truth, it doesn't hurt. I'm going to go ahead and turn everything on. Shared features, I want all the stuff on. Definitely want management tools complete. I do not really need the distributed relay controller, distributed reply client, the client connectivity SDK or master data services particularly, but again, I'll go ahead and turn them on. So, of course, there is the select all, and you can go ahead and choose a different path, but I would strongly urge you not to. Just go ahead and use the defaults. Now, one thing to notice is that we're going to have some items installed in one subfolder, program files specifically, and others installed in program files x86. This is because I'm running this on a 64-bit operating system. So the deal is that after SQL Server is installed, there will be times where you're going to want to go look for particular files and folders on the hard drive just to figure out where things are going. And you'll have two places where files can be placed. So, for example, if I make a brand new database, I'd want to go looking in one of these folders. I don't remember which one right now. I got a 50-50 chance of guessing it right. But anyway, the point is that there will be two places where you can look for things. Okay, let's go ahead and leave everything as it is. I've hit the select all. I'm just going to go ahead and hit next. Now, this is unfortunate. I see that Visual Studio instance requires an update. So, like I said, I just freshly installed Visual Studio 2010, and it looks to me that I'm going to have to go through and put Service Pack 1 on here before I continue. Okay, well, this happens. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and pause the video right now and take care of that. After that's done, I'll go ahead and rerun this, and we'll see how it happens. So the video is going to pause while I go ahead and take care of it. Well, that took about 20 minutes or so, but I'm back now, and we're going to press the little button to rerun the installation check. And as you can see, it is now passed. I did not reboot the computer afterwards, although to tell you the truth, I probably would recommend that to most people. Still, I'm going to go ahead and live dangerously and continue the installation now that it's past the update. Now at this point I need to come up with a name for my installation. I think what I want to do is go ahead and just call it SQL 2012. Now I could install it as a default instance, and if I did that, then from here on out I'd just be able to go ahead and use local or local in parentheses or local host to connect to it. And to tell you the truth, that's not a bad idea. If I install it as a named instance, like SQL 2012 or EIEIO, it really makes no difference what name you call it. But you should call it something that makes some kind of sense. Now, as I mentioned, this is a clean installation. I haven't installed SQL 2012 on this machine before. In fact, I do have SQL Express, which, by the way, as you can see, has been installed with the instance name of SQL Express, which is its default. But that's it. So I have a decision at this point to make. Do I want to go ahead and make a named instance? In which case, I always would have to type in the name of my computer, or whatever name I dreamed up. I'd have to preface it with the parenthesis, local parenthesis, backslash. In other words, if I name it that, whenever I try to connect to it, I have to type in the name of my server, local host, local dot, whatever, something that indicates the name of the server with a backslash and whatever the named instance is. Or choose just the default option, in which case I just use the local host or local or whatever. On the first installation, I think I'll go ahead and use the default instance. Here, I'm at the part where I need to go through and configure the accounts I'm going to use to run the SQL software in the background. And it recommends a few options for us. The recommendation is, let's see, the account name is SQL Server Agent, Microsoft SQL Server, OLAP Service. They've got a bunch of these already set up. And I will accept I'm going to go ahead and accept them all as is. Collation I'm going to go ahead and leave at Latin 1, code page 1, case insensitive and accent sensitive. So really, I guess there's nothing here I want to change. Now, normally I have been recommending, before SQL 2012 seemed to resolve this, going through and choosing a different account and just giving that account full admin permissions. So, this works, and I can go ahead and do that on all of them. But of course, the problem is I'm elevating the permissions way above what's strictly necessary, which is not a best practice by any means. Still, if I end up having problems with my installation, that's what I'll go back to. I'll go back and I'll change the server's account that it runs under to the administrator account and see if the problem disappears. At that point in time, I'll know it's a security issue, and then I'll have to decide whether or not it's worth my time tracking down where the issue is at or just leaving it alone. I'm on my own personal home machine to develop courseware for my students and to do any exercises that I might get from various books that I buy to study up on things. So it's not exactly a high-risk security machine. Using my administrator account is certainly above security level permissions that I'd want to do in production. But for my own machine, I don't care. Anyway, the reason why I'm going to go ahead and leave it as it is so that I can test certain theories and issues that may come up with a default installation using these. So I will personally go ahead and leave them for right now, knowing that I can always change them to and elevate the permissions later on as needed. Next. This is probably the most important screen, this and the next one, most important screen on the whole installation. This is the one where people kind of mess up all the time. What I want to do is I want to make sure that I add my current logged on user. So I press the add current user button down here at the bottom. If I don't, what happens is I end up getting locked out of my own computer. So that's an issue. I don't want to, I said computer, that's not quite true. I end up getting locked out of the database engine as an administrator. So I strongly urge you to always click on the add current user. And what's going to happen is it's going to make whoever you're logged in as SQL administrator. Things I've seen is that somebody in the family is kind of the IT person, so they install the SQL Server for you, and that's a good thing. It's nice. The problem is they press the button, and then when you log on, they have administration rights, but you don't. So that's not the end of the world. They just have to make sure that they log on as administrator and give you admin rights at a later point in time. But I think for most of us, we're going to be installing it ourselves, and at that point, you want to make sure you click on the Add Current User so that you are an administrator. As far as these other settings, you can leave them as it is. I do want to go ahead and turn on the file stream option for my development. I do not want to allow remote clients to access it. I don't need that. But I'll go ahead and turn that on just so, again, I can do some testing on my machine. In most of my classes, I would pretty much say all at this point in time, you do not need that, but it doesn't hurt. There's another option here about setting up mixed mode versus Windows only. This is actually kind of a useful option, but I typically leave it as it is, and then go through and show how to change it later on in whatever class you're in with me. But anyway, I'll go ahead and leave it as it is. So all I really did was click on the Add Current User and wait for a few seconds. Went to the file stream and enabled those two checkboxes. Now I'm ready to hit Next. The screen looks almost the same, at least in some regards anyway, but now it's for the Analysis Server configuration, and it's the same issue. I have to hit the Add Current User. Once I do that, I'll have admin rights for this particular account. In this case, I'm logged on as Randall. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting is that Microsoft in 2012 gave us the tabular mode for Analysis Server, which is pretty cool. The only thing is, you can only choose to either install the multi-dimensional model, which is the one that most companies are using currently, and also the one that I typically use in classrooms, or the tabular mode. You can't do both. So this is the point in time where you get to choose one or the other. Now, as I had mentioned, you can install SQL Server many times on the same machine. So what I'll do is, after I install it with the multi-dimensional model, I'll go back and install a second instance with the tabular mode. So I'm going to leave this alone. I'm also going to leave alone the data directories. I'm sure there is a better location for them. Like if I had an additional hard drive, that would be a great spot. But I don't, and I'm just not worried about it. So hit the Add Current User button, leave everything else alone, hit Next. Reporting Server. I want to go ahead and install and configure Reporting Server right now. Now, it's true that sometimes the configuration goes awry, shall we say, but it certainly is likely that it'll also go nice and clean. If you take a Reporting Server class with me, I get into more details, and if you're reading one of my books or documents that describe setting up Reporting Server, certainly I cover it there. But right now, during the installation, just leave it as it is and continue on. SharePoint mode, there's actually the only install option. It requires that SharePoint's installed on your machine set up. That is very unlikely. The SharePoint installation does not is not something most people install on their own machines. It can be daunting, shall we say. But be that as may, just leave it as it is and just hit OK. Although it will install the necessary files to utilize that, it actually won't be a problem. There's really nothing you can do. I'm using this distributed replay controller, which is advanced feature that I chose as part of the full installation. Once again, just hit Add Current User. This is not something that I typically will get into in the classes I use. One day I may have some advanced classes on administration stuff that I may include, so I'm putting it there just for testing purposes. And let's see, specify controller machine name, location. I'm just going to go ahead and indicate this computer. This computer name is Northwest Tech 1. It's nice if Microsoft gets these reports. What they do is they do actually. I've worked on the teams at Microsoft on this, and they actually listen to what's going on people's machines and try to respond to make your software better. And they do not give out or store personal information, so you can certainly check that and send the error reports back to Microsoft. They are very respectful of your privacy, and it does help them, make better software for us. But it's up to you. If you want to ignore that, you certainly can. I will turn that off right now because I am planning on doing some, weird testing stuff on this machine that may not really be representative of what they're trying to do. But anyway, it's at your discretion. Okay, another configuration check, and we should have passed that. Now it gives us an overview about what it's going to try to accomplish. Hit the install and just wait for it to finish up. Now, as I said, it takes a little while for it to go. It's not horribly bad, but I would say about 15 minutes or so. So once again, it's time to pause the video unless you want to sit here and watch that thing tick. And I'm pretty sure you don't. So I'll be back here in just a minute for the completion. Well, now we finished the installation. It took quite a while, but it's all done. And we can go ahead and see that things were successful. That's great. Click on the close. Now, at that point in time, we should still have the installation center open, and I can then go through and install another installation again right away. Now this time I'm going to go ahead and install the Tabular installations. And it will not take very long, to tell you the truth. It goes really quickly after this. Installing the Tabular option in Analysis Server isn't strictly necessary. But it is nice to see the new features, and certainly they are going to be something you can predict will be quite popular here in the near future. Okay, so I'm going to install a new installation of SQL 2012. You can see it's already installed. The named instance is MS SQL when it's the default. So I'll read through this again quickly. And I'm going to be installing it once more. This time I would want to just install Analysis Server. The other one's the shared components already installed. And I'm installing Analysis Server so I can have the Tabular piece. And I'm going to call it SSAS Let's see, I'm not sure I can get away with a dash. We'll find out. Tabular. Yeah, well, can't win them all. Underscore tabular. Again, I'll just go ahead and leave everything as it is. And make sure I choose tabular mode, and also make sure I add current user. I'm not sure why it takes so long for it to find this, but it does. Hopefully it should pop back there in a second. There it is. And, as I said, the installation goes pretty quickly after that. Now, in a few minutes it'll be done, and then we'll have 3 installations, if you would, of SQL here. I'll have the SQL Express, the default instance of SQL 2012, with Analysis Server in its standard cube-based format. And then an additional Analysis Server installation in the tabular-based format. And also the tools, the management tools and everything else will be installed at that point in time. And I do have to tell you that I strongly recommend, as soon as you finish up these installations, that you do go through and reboot. So as you can see, this is done now. So you can close this and then go through and reboot. Now, as soon as SQL Server 2012 was released, or very shortly afterwards, they had a service pack ready for it. So you probably want to go ahead and install that as well. And that's pretty much it for the setup. So normally I would not recommend going through and looking at the SQL tools when you first get it installed before you reboot. But just to show you, I'll go ahead and connect to the SQL Server Management Studio. It takes a little bit for it to launch. It's going to ask me, hey, do you want to import custom user settings? Well, to tell you the truth, I don't, so I'll just say no. I don't really have any custom settings already there. Now this machine's pretty quick. It's a newer computer. It's got 12 gigs of RAM. So some of these screens may take a little bit longer than yours. Certainly, Management Studio can be a little on the pokey side, shall we say. Database engine now is connected to. You won't have databases like AdventureWorks or Pubs or Northwind. You'll have to add those later. But now I can connect to Analysis Server as the default instance, or Analysis Server in the tabular format. As you can see, there's a little bit of differences between the two. And don't forget, I also have the Express Edition on here too, that I can connect to and work with. So the system's pretty elegant. It works really well. I've got it now installed, the database engine, Analysis Server in the standard cube format, Analysis Server in the tabular format, SQL Express, plus there's some additional supporting stuff such as Integration Services Engine and Reporting Server Engine. I haven't got the Azure stuff configured yet, but perhaps in another video. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful as far as getting things set up for your classroom experience. Hopefully this will make things a little bit smoother for you. I know that a lot of students kind of struggle getting things ready to go before class starts, and it can be a little frustrating, so hopefully this will cut that frustration level down a bit. Thanks for watching.